an incredible corridor of possibilities that 5 years later you look back where you started and you can't even believe it because you're a completely new person. Like the person I am from where I was before is not even recognizable. I have like reminiscences of that person in little glimpses, right? But to predict on where I'd be right now in Agape speaking to all of you, totally like irrational. Unbelievable. But somehow here I am. So, okay, let's get into the chocolate talk. What I want to express to you guys in the little download on chocolate, I guarantee you've never heard this before. You've never heard anyone talk about chocolate like this before. And I never thought I'd be talking about chocolate like this before, but somehow these downloads started happening to me a few years ago when I got into raw and living foods and I started to heal my body and I started to heal my mind, really. I didn't know that I had psychological imbalances, but then as I started to gain clarity and I started to see the reflection in the mirror a little more clearly, I started to see my own stuff, I started to take accountability on that and make changes. I realized like, whoa, wow, that's interesting. Like there was a little neurosis going on, there was a little imbalance, there was these little issues coming up, and now I see how far I've come. Anyways, what that led me into years down the road, I got introduced to this whole chocolate thing, this whole raw cacao message, and then by way of David Wolf, who's some of you guys may know, some of you may not, he's one of my close friends and my primary mentor in the field of raw food and nutrition. And like Steve alluded to, we did a huge event in the Bay Area, about 200 people, and we did an event together, and that started a huge friendship. And actually, he told me at one of his conferences, we're hanging out in the back, just relaxing, and he literally tells me, he said, Ronnie, it's your job now. This is your job now to take this chocolate message, take it back home, and start these chocolate nightclubs. I was like, ooh. Like, whoa, okay. Like, he got into it. He's like, okay, this is it. I'm just like, yes, sir. I'm like, okay. And then, but to corroborate that, I went back to the Bay Area where I'm originally from, and his business partner and close friend, Steve Adler, who is the chocolate Willy Wonka, who runs the Sacred Chocolate Factory, I'm in the car with him, and we're going to dinner, and he starts blasting me out of nowhere, 30 minutes straight. He's like, this is how you're going to do it. You're going to go to LA, then you're going to go to Miami, then you're going to go to whatever, Singapore, then you're going to go to Florida, then you're going to come back to the Bay Area. I mean, he just went on this whole thing. We had no other conversation, so I'm like, oh, like, whoa, okay, I guess this is a message. So we've been doing that. Ever since I came to LA, we've been doing raw chocolate nightclubs. And they've been getting bigger. They've been getting better.
It was good.
Yeah, it's been absolutely amazing. Do you guys know Kyle Cease, the comedian? He's come to Agape before. I think he's done some stuff here. He's a really well-known comedian. He's a raw foodist now. And we went and grabbed him for the last one. He did this whole beautiful thing. My friend Sipes and the people, they have this raw food band. You know, we're pulling in all these kind of people, and we're infusing the artistry and the beauty of music. We're collaborating with entertainers, and we're trying to draw the connections in all these art forms and bring them together and use chocolate as the facilitator of that and just get people together, get them excited. Like, did you guys know that it's cool to be conscious now? That is wild. And that's so cool. All right. So really one of the things I wanted to express to you guys about this whole chocolate thing is that I'm working on a book right now called The Hidden Messages in Chocolate. And this is a mind bender. There's nothing like this that's ever been put out in the grand last hundreds of years of lineage on like chocolate literature, if you guys can believe that. There's like a huge amount of volumes of books on the absurdity of the history behind chocolate, like the last 13,000 years on cacao and where it came from and where it is now. And something that I found incredibly interesting is that there was a message that downloaded to me, and I'm working on this section right now, and I found out that chocolate or cacao is the living embodiment in the plant spirit world, if you can even get that, of the story of Faust, or the Faustian bargain. Is anyone aware of that? the classic, the German literary genius Johann Goethe, he brought to light this theme that's been going on throughout history of the alchemist or the scholar who trades his soul to the devil for fame and fortune now, only to enter into a long-term tragedy, basically enslaving his soul for short-term gain. We've all heard that story, right? Well, I started digging into this. I saw there was something tapping me into it, like, you need to read this, you need to read. So I went and read it, and I found out that Goethe was a chocolate enthusiast. And he would actually, in the 1700s, when he would travel into Spain, or not into Spain, to Switzerland, he would take his own chocolate with him. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. He downloaded this whole story on Faust, and I drew the correlations as I dug into the history of it and how the cacao bean went from a sacred food, where in Mesoamerica, this was like their gold. Like the way we look at gold now, to them, this was money. In fact, in ancient Mexico, or Tenochtitlan, which we now know as Mexico City, the biggest city in that region, until about 1887, the cacao bean was their standardized currency until it traded over into the peso. How many people knew that? So to them, cacao was money. So the whole saying, like, money doesn't grow on trees is actually not quite the whole story.